Kia ora, Helen Brahms here, coming to you live from Surprise in Arizona. Hope you're having a super fantastic sparkling day. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast number 1751, Rediscovering Hobbies and Interests tonight. So yeah, I thought we'd take a walk down memory lane, and I was going through my family tree and just thinking of some of the hobbies and interests that some of my ancestors had. Most of them were in gardening. Yeah, that gene completely skipped me. But it got me thinking about some of the hobbies and interests that I've had in the past and things that I've done. And it's just like, oh, why don't I do that one anymore? Just why? Why? And I'm sorry for being late today because I fell asleep on the couch. And Zephy didn't wake me. She didn't wake me in time. She fell asleep too. So anyway, here we are. We're here to rediscovering our hobbies and our interests. And what's really cool about hobbies and interests is that stuff that, it's things that we like to do that can help improve our mental health by reducing stress and anxiety. Depending on what the activity is, it could be quite physical. So it could have benefits, like an exercise, improving our motor skills, or just our physical being. Some people, they have an interest in doing yoga. It's a very relaxing, meditative type of exercise. I just didn't realize how many different types of yoga were out there. I thought, I'm going to give yoga a go. So I go on YouTube and talk about, beginner's yoga. And they've got all these different types of yoga that came up. And I'm like, I have no clue. So we're just putting that one on the back burner for now. But then also what hobbies and interests did you have as a child? Me, I love to read a lot. I also loved handcrafts. Remember the first time I knitted, I'm sitting there with 2 knitting needles. I remember this like it was yesterday. I was probably about 3 or 4, probably 4, maybe 5. But we were at our place. It's in our place. My mum's younger sister was visiting. I'm thinking I was about 4, maybe 5. I'm sitting there with 2 knitting needles under each arm. And I've got the 2 knitting needles. I'm hanging on to them both like I've seen my mum do. And she winds the wool around the needle and this thing grows. And so I'm just sitting there and I'm just winding this yarn around this one. The other one's tucked under this arm over here. And I'm just winding the yarn around this needle here. And my aunt says to me, she says, Helen, what are you doing? I looked at her and went, I'm knitting. And I just carried on winding this wool around. I have no idea how it was. It was probably about a year or 2 after that my mum actually taught me how to knit. She did not teach me how to crochet. That I actually learned at school. And I got so excited about crochet. And I was at first year of middle school. And one of the teachers there showed me how to crochet. And so I went home super excited that night because I was creating this granny square. And that's just the regular square pattern. I got home and I'm practicing this crocheting. I was super excited. I learned how to do this. I was going to make it big for the next day when we went back to school. Yeah, my square had 10 corners on it the next day at school. And I went up to Mrs. Funnel and I says, I practiced last night. I don't know where all these corners came from. And so she helped me undo it and then showed me where I went wrong, and that, helped me correct it and that. And I actually ended up teaching my mum years later how to crochet. And she actually had this we call them jerseys, sweaters that she had knitted for somebody, but that needed a crochet collar on it. And so I did the crochet collar for her on that one. So we collaborated. Another one that was big growing up, which I haven't done in years, and I can't wait to pull my machines out to do this, was sewing. My mum kind of taught me how to sew. My mum taught me how to sew. Her mum was a seamstress, so made sure all of her daughters knew how to sew. And I picked up, learned hand sewing. I learned machine sewing. I remember we had clothing was the class that I had at school when I was in high school. In intermediate middle school, we did the first half of the year. Well, some of us did the first half of the year home economics. The second half of the year was in the workshop. Those that were in the workshop, the first half of the year did home economics, the second half of the year. When we're doing, and of course, in New Zealand schools go end of January through to middle of December, and we have breaks in between. And when we were learning the different things and stuff, home economics, you learned cooking and you learned sewing. And I made this really cool hat, which I absolutely loved. It had a little the wheel of from a boat on, the steering wheel for a boat on there. I don't remember what it's called. And it was a favorite cap of mine. I also made a really cool tote bag. And then we learned cooking as well. And I would always take home stuff that I had cooked so that everybody else in the family got to try it. My youngest brother and my middle brother did the same. And then my youngest brother, I'm the oldest of three, my youngest brother, he would eat everything and wouldn't take anything home for anybody to try. But he would make stuff at home, and he turned out to be a very good cook and very good in the kitchen. And now he has been expanding his kitchen skills. And he turned out, and my mum sent me the other day this beautiful, I think it was a Black Forest Gâteau cake that he had made for his wife for her birthday. It was stunning. It looked amazing. And I got told it tasted just as good as it looked. And I'm like, dang, next time I go to New Zealand, I want some of his cooking. He's making bread from scratch. He's making cakes and cheesecakes and all these different types of meals and everything else from scratch for his family. And I'm just sort of like, oh, he is such a good, my brother really is a magician in the kitchen. But yeah, and so I learned to cook as a youngster as well. And I used to love cooking. I don't know what, I decided I was going to make lemonade one day. And so I was a teenager at the time, and I went and I picked the lemons off the lemon tree, and I figured it's just lemon juice and you throw some sugar in it to sweeten it up. And so I stood there and I had the little juicer thingy me bob that you put the stuff on and wind it down. So I had that, and I made up this lemonade for everybody. I used all the sugar we had. My mum went later on to make something. She couldn't find any sugar. And she goes, we had a bag of sugar here. Where's it gone? Oh, it's in the lemonade. I had to keep adding sugar until it tasted sweet enough, I had no idea how to make lemonade. I just figured it out. That's how I do a lot of things in the kitchen. Give me a recipe and I'll use it as a basis, and then I'll figure out the rest of it and that sort of stuff. And, just show me how to do it once, and oh yeah, I got the idea of that, and I'll just go do it. But when it comes to gardening, that gene missed this girl. Yeah, never get me to weed your garden. I'll probably end up pulling out plants as well as weeds, or I'll leave the weeds and pull out the plants. Some of them I recognize, but my parents have an amazing garden. And but yes, I learned to sew, and sewing I haven't done for a while. I still have my sewing machine and my overlocker, and kind of looking forward to the time when I can actually get my craft room fully set up. It's got the tables in the middle, but nothing is set up on the tables yet because everything's still in boxes because I have no shelves to put anything on. And so I'm sort of like, got to figure that one out. So we'll get that figured out eventually. But I'm even thinking, well, I can get access to my sewing machine. How hard can it be? But I remember being in high school. I had clothing and home economics was my two classes. And I enjoyed woodwork as well. I just wasn't very good at finishing projects. My parents still have. I made it when I was about 11. Do the math. It's 46 years old. A little stool that you could stand on. I made it. I did all the plastering up of the gaps. But I never finished staining it. And my parents to this day still have that stool in their house that I made. And it still works perfectly fine. My mum takes it out to reach out, or my mum or dad will take it out to reach up on the height. And it's only just about this tall. And it still works. And when I go down to their place, I go and stand on it. I want to see, it still works. It still works, and it's still going good. 46 years later, it's still working and still going good. So I did enjoy doing the woodwork stuff. I just got kind of, I've got to finish that. I did make a bottle opener once, and I did stain it. I did do that. And I made a toy tank. One of the other projects we had was a toy tank. And on the front of the tank, I ended up writing numbers. So it could be a push button phone, and you could take the top of the tank off, which had a square and a piece of dowel coming out. And the square was the earpiece, and the straight piece for the cannon was the microphone. And I would use that as a telephone. Crazy stuff, I know. And then the body of the tank would have I drew it on in pencil, would have the numbers on there so you could, hello. Just crazy stuff. Reading has always stuck with me. I love to read. I also love to write. And I suddenly realized today I haven't done any writing for a while, not even in my journals. And usually I was getting, I was sort of I need to get back into journals again because I'm just feeling feeling off. I'm not sure what it is, but then I suddenly realized I haven't done any writing for a while, and that's probably why I'm feeling off, because I'm not writing down. I'm not doing my journaling, and I'm not doing my writing, and so I have this mental block right now that's stopping me from doing everything else. And so I need to clear it by writing, and writing usually helps me clear a lot of gunk out of the brain and free up some space. And like when you have a, like a spring clean or something, and you go through and you're sorting through stuff and you're getting rid of stuff and all of that, it helps not just the physical space, but also helps the mental space and allows things to come in, new ideas, new thoughts and things. And I'm like thinking, I'm feeling a little cluttered right now. And it's because I haven't done any writing for a while. So I'm just sort of like, okay, we have to get back into the writing and get some of that done. And I've got all these ideas that I keep writing stuff down about, but I never actually write. Like, I haven't written a blog in probably a couple of months. And I'm like, wow. And I suddenly realized today that I haven't done my newsletter for like 3 or 4 weeks. And I'm like, eek. Yeah. So it's sort of like, okay, we need to make the time in the schedule to get back into the swing of things and get back to basics. And sometimes it's just taking up hobbies like knitting and crocheting. I love to do in the winter months, especially the crocheting, because I end up crocheting a lot of blankets and like lap rugs. For I call them chemo blankets, but those are for I make them up. I have plastic container. I have these big plastic containers that are just chock full of yarn, and I just keep using it to knit or crochet chemo blankets or prayer shawls, and I just give them away. Sometimes I give them away to an organization to give out. Other times I will get an instinct or an inkling of who I am supposed to give that blanket or prayer shawl to. And the prayer shawls are triangular in shape, and they're ones that go around people's shoulders, and you pray over them as you're making them for the health of that person, for, show me who this is to go to. And you're basically blessing this person, if they wrap the shawl around you, that they feel like they're getting a hug. Because sometimes people just can't get a hug, and just something as simple as putting a shawl around them, they might feel like they're getting a hug. I know, I like hugs. My hug meter got blown up last week with the grandkids, especially the youngest one. He'd just be like, "Grandma!" Go to pick him up from preschool, and I walk in the door, and all I hear was, "Grandma!" And then this bullet would come flying at me, and I just reach down, pick him up, and he'd just wrap himself around me and just hug. And then one day I walked in, and he was actually in the restroom at the time. This little girl looks up and she goes, "Grandma!" It was rather touching to be called grandma by another kid as well. So they only knew me as grandma anyway. But as soon as he came out of the restroom, he's like, "Grandma!" And he comes over and gives me hugs. But yeah, my hug meter got filled to overflowing last week. So that was pretty cool. It hasn't been that full for a long time. Let's see. So just taking up things like that, knitting, and I found a knitting project when I was sorting through some stuff. I've got one of those plastic drawer organizer things, and I opened up one of the drawers and I went, "Oh, that's the blanket I was working on." So I have this blanket you make in quarters and then you sew it together, but it's really cool on how it's done and on how you knit it and everything else. And I thought, oh, must get back, because I started getting quite quick at making this. The first quarter was slow as I was learning everything. Then as I got into the rhythm of doing it, the second quarter went very quickly. And now I've got to go back to the beginning and figure out how to do it all over again, because it actually has a jagged edge, and then it has these squares which are all in different directions and things, and how you pick them up and knit. And yeah, because you knit a square at a time, and then you cast it off, and then you pick up stitches along the edge of a square, and then you knit the next piece, and then you pick up stitches this way. And it's just really cool how it works. And so I'm hoping that the pattern is in there with the rest of the material, because all the yarn is in there, and the first 2 quarters are in there. So now I have to find the pattern and the oh, sorry, I just got distracted with the remote. I'm like, is that what no, that's not what I was looking for. I've lost a remote. And so I just need to figure out how to get back into that pattern of doing that again. So that'll be something cool. And since it is coming up to summer here, and today we had our first triple digit day Fahrenheit wise. It was 101 degrees today, which is about, hang on, I got to go back to my picture I took, because I took two pictures, one of the Fahrenheits and one of the Celsius. So it was 101 degrees today, which is 39 degrees Celsius. It's hot. And I'm like, I have to go walk Zephy in this. I was not expecting a 103, a triple digit day today. I was expecting around 94, 95 again. Oh, we've come down a couple of degrees. Where are we at now? 37 degrees Celsius or 98 degrees Fahrenheit. Might be waiting a little longer to drop another degree or two, but it's getting warm out there, which means I'm probably going to start taking water with me when we go for our walks, depending on how long Zephy wants to walk for. But usually when it's hot, she's just sort of like, just get me out of here. Let me do my stuff and go home. So we do a very short route during the heat because it's just too hot to be out. Yeah, overnight low of 70 degrees. Yuck. Oh, it's going to be 68 degrees tomorrow when we get up. We've got to get up extra early. We've got our mastermind group tomorrow. So, and no rain in the fall. We're in monsoon season. Oh, yes, we've got triple digits coming up. Not this coming week, but the following week, definitely. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the 27th, 28th, and 29th. 101 degrees each day. Ugh. I know, I live in Arizona. What can I expect? But we'll see. We'll get through it. We'll get through it. So yeah, so start looking at hobbies and things. So reading has always been there. It has always been there for me. I read every single day. I always have like at least 5 to 6 books on the go at any one time. It's a mixture of fiction and nonfiction. And it's simply because I have this attention span at times of a gnat. I read a bit of this and it's sort of like, okay, this is getting a little boring. Oh, let's go read. Oh, let's go finish reading this one over here. Oh no, let's go do this one. Yeah. Sometimes I get into a book. There's a couple of authors that when I start reading their books, I cannot put them down. And so when I know they're bringing out a new book, we've got a new book release coming out, and I may have it on pre-order or I may have it ready to go and order, the day it comes out. I will actually block a weekend day, like usually a Sunday, just to sit and read a book. And just sit down and read the book. And the only time I get up is if my water bottle goes dry, I got to go to the bathroom. I don't worry about the food side of things. I usually grab a snack if I have to get up. I go grab a snack. But then half the time I'll be walking down the hallway, whether I'm reading the physical book or the Kindle, and I'll be walking down the hallway to go to the bathroom, and I'll be reading as I walk. Can't put the book down. Be in the kitchen there. Oh, need a snack? Yep. So I always have, when I know I'm going to be spending a day reading, I always make snacks that are ready to go. All I got to do is open up the refrigerator, grab them, and we're good to go. Like if I do like hard-boiled eggs, I will have them already peeled. So I just need to go in there, reach and grab one and go eat. So I have ready-made snacks for when I'm going to be doing a day of reading to get through the latest book that's just come out from a couple of authors. And so reading is another one. Some people do the workshop thing. My dad for years did wood turning. He had a lathe in his garage, and he actually taught Brad how to turn wood. And the last time we were down there in 2000, when Brad was down there, was 2006. And so Dad actually had him in the garage teaching her. And Brad made this little wooden goblet and made this little plate. It's got his initials written on the bottom and the type of wood it is. And he did all the sanding and the staining of it with my dad, under my dad's guidance. And so I still have those and treasure them very much. And Brad was actually looking into doing wood turning classes, and he had signed up, and that was December 2006 into January 2007. And so he came home from that, and he kept putting it off. And I said, look, if you're going to do this if you enjoy doing this wood turning thing, why not see if there's somebody who has a class for it? And so he's looking around, finally found a class towards the end of 2007. He found a class that started in February of 2008. It was like a 16-week class, I think it was, but it's going to be every Wednesday night, and it was on his drive home from work. And so he would stay at work until it was time for the class, because he didn't have time to come home, turn around, and go back again, because based on where it was. And so he would, we had it set up that he would leave, I would pack him extra food that day, so he had something for dinner as well. I made his lunches. I like putting little notes into his lunches too. Yeah, he'd take a bite of a sandwich. It's like, what the heck's in here? Oh, cheapers. I love doing little notes and sandwiches. And So we had it all worked out that he would do these classes on Wednesday, and they'd finish at like 10 o'clock at night, which means he wouldn't get home till like around 10:30, 11 o'clock on Wednesday nights. It was one night a week, and that was fine. And so we had all that lined up to go. And then January of 2008 came along. And towards the end there, he got diagnosed with cancer. And he was 2 weeks from starting his first class for wood turning. And of course, not knowing what was going to be happening with the cancer and everything else, he called up the school, explained to them the situation. They gave him a full refund on everything, for which we were grateful. We weren't sure if we would get a full refund, but he'd just been diagnosed with cancer. And they said, yeah, we'll give you a full refund. It's not a problem. And he never got to do the wood turning again after that. But it was something that he enjoyed doing. And my dad said he actually had a talent for it. And so I'm kind of a little bummed that he didn't get to do any more with the wood turning, because I'll have to dig out those 2 pieces. They're in my cupboard in the kitchen. But they were beautiful pieces that he, just a little goblet about this big. He said it turned out a little smaller. And I says, hey, you're just learning. And then he did this plate, which is about this round. He did a really good job on both of them. So there was the wood turning thing. And my dad did it for years. He ended up giving his lathe away or selling it or something. I was like, but then I have a lot of his stuff in my cupboards that my dad has turned. So that's pretty cool. What else? Just what hobbies and interests did you have as a child that you could go back? Reading's always been there for me. Working in the garage with my dad, learning stuff on cars. He got to the point where I could actually do the timing on an engine with the strobe lights and the little tuning things. I don't think you actually have to do that anymore with the new cars. But I could do that. I learned how to do that. We got to learn to do lots of stuff in the garage with my dad. Learned how to fix things. Something went wrong in the house, Dad would fix it, and I'd be there watching how it got done. Help. I think the boys ended up helping my dad more than I did, but I did help on some. I learned some things on some, but I did not learn how to do hinges correctly. And remember when Dad came over, Mum and Dad came over and stayed with us, and we're living in Virginia, and I had replaced the door to the basement, because the door to the basement was a solid, like these doors behind me. They were the hollow core doors. And you couldn't see if anybody was coming up the stairs. And if you were coming up the stairs, you couldn't see if anybody was walking past the door before you opened it. So I replaced it with, it was a beautiful wooden door that I replaced with, it had glass panels in it. So you could see if anybody was coming up the stairs, or if somebody was coming up the stairs, they could see if anybody was in the foyer. And because the door opened out into the foyer. So you had to be careful of that one. And so I hung it, and I, for the life of me, could not get it to work correctly. It worked, but it kept jamming. So, and then in the laundry, we had a door that opened into the laundry, and I was like, that's not going to work, because our washing machine, no, our dryer was sitting there, and you couldn't operate the door with the dryer there. And so I said to Brad, surely we could just like move it from that side of the door frame to this side of the door frame so it swings out into the breakfast area. And I said, it can't be that difficult. So when my dad came out for that, then I put furniture together for down in our guest room, and there was a dresser that had 2 doors on it. I tell you, me and hinges, I followed directions exactly. They said, do this, here's the templates. I did all that. Did they work? Kinda. Did my dad make them better? Absolutely. So, and of course, whenever my dad came over, I had to have the daddy do list. And it was really funny because he would take Brad under his wing, and they'll go do the daddy do list together. And Brad would help my dad out. And my mum and I went out shopping one day, and we came back, and at the front of our garage, they built this shelving on either side with a workbench across the middle. The 2 of them had done it together. And we come and was like, wow, this is really cool. And so the 2 of them had worked on that together, that project, and it was up in place by the time we got home from shopping. So that was pretty good. So we had a mother-daughter day while Brad and my dad had a father-son day, even though it was son-in-law. They had a guy's day. We went and had a girl's day. We came home, and there's this whole shelving storage unit with a workbench across the middle that they built from scratch. And they didn't have to go buy anything. We already had all the materials to build that. I don't remember why we had the materials that we had. I think it was for some other project or something that we ended up scrapping or something. I don't remember. But they had everything there, and they just made this shelving unit with the workbench in the middle. It was really cool. So we had a whole bunch of storage there in the garage, which was awesome. So yeah, so what stuff did you do as kids that you really enjoyed that you no longer do? Why not go back and visit those times? Having hobbies and interests is a good mental break from work. Yes, I absolutely love genealogy, and it is a huge hobby of mine. It is also a business. So I have to, so the hobby side of it comes in when I work on my own family tree. The business side is when I work on the client's family tree. So, so there are times but there are also times too when I'm like working on something and I'll get an idea about a client's tree. And I'm like, oh, let me just go check that. And I'm sort of like, even if it's trees that I no longer work on because the contract with the client has ended, I still go back and have a look and see what else I can find for the client, because you never know. There may be that missing link that we've always been looking for that's never surfaced. And records are going online all the time and things are changing. And you go in there and you might leave it alone for a year or two and go back in and there's the records we've been looking for. Oh, this person's finally appeared. So yeah, because there are some records that based on the date of death and their birth date that you might be able to find online, but most of them are like, for the birth date, they have to be born 100 years ago, or they have to have been dead for, here's a dead thingy in there too. There's, and like for the death thing, you can able to look up all of my grandparents, my great aunts and uncles. I can look up their death dates, and some of them actually have their birth dates written on there, which is really cool. But I can only see them because their birthday was over 100 years ago. Yes, that's what it was. Their birthdays were over 100 years ago. But I think it might be if they died, that their birthday, if they're dead, it's got to be like something. There's a 50-year thing or a 80-year thing in there. And I know for marriages, it's like 80 years in some places. You can't look up their record if they're 80 years. And there was like this great aunt and uncle that I had, and I've been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And mum actually happened to be, mum and dad happened to be staying with us when we were living in San Diego. And the 80-year mark had passed on this great aunt and uncle's thing. And we kind of knew when around they got married. And so I suddenly went, oh, his records should be showing up. So I jumped on the New Zealand birth, deaths, and marriages thing, typed in his name, because I wasn't sure which name he got married under, but I knew what his wife's maiden name was. So I looked under her name, and up came the marriage certificate. And it had just passed the 80-year mark. And so I was like, yes. And which was added more to a puzzle with that particular great uncle. And so I showed my mum. I said, she came out and she goes, oh, what you doing? I said, well, I just went in and found this. And she's like, oh, isn't that interesting? Yeah. She said, well, can you find his birth? And I'm like, well, let me have a look. And so we went in there and we found his birth record as well, which was issued well after he was born. So it was one of those backtracking ones. And I said, yes, but the guy they've got as his father died 6 years before he was born. So how can he be the dad? You know, that is a mystery we're still trying to solve. Yes. And we know there are relatives who there's a side of the family that has that information and knows the true story. But for some reason, they're not allowed to talk to my side of the family. I don't know why. Because when I found out about this, when somebody said, oh, I've got his death records, and I go, you sure that's the right date? Yeah, I got a death. She goes, why? And I said, well, you've got it showing as this date, yeah? Well, I've got uncle showing as this, or he was born on this date, which is 6 years after this fourth great grandfather died. Second great grandfather died, and didn't hear another thing from her. Because she was from that side of the family that knew the truth, and I was from the other side of the family that wasn't allowed to know the truth. So it turned out that with my grandfather, his sister's side of the family, because there was just my grandfather and his sister's side of the family were now allowed to know the truth, but they weren't allowed to tell her brother's side of the family. Interesting. So we just put together the pieces that we can and find out the little bits of information we can along the way, and find records that help back up things or create more questions, as this one did. So it's a very interesting world out there. But what hobbies and interests do you have? Think about things that you've done as a kid. Do you want to do them again? Are you still doing them? Maybe there's something that's like, oh yeah, I haven't made pipe cleaning animals. I love doing pipe cleaning animals. I haven't made any for a long time. But I did at one point in the RV grab a thing of pipe cleaners and just started twisting and turning them and making little rabbits. Rabbits were my favorite ones to make. Don't ask me why. I have no idea. And so, yeah, I used to make things out of pipe cleaners and just animals out of pipe cleaners. Rabbits were my favorite. It was the only one I could remember when I started twisting them again. But, there's books you can get on all this stuff. So what crafts did you used to do as a kid that you'd like to take up again? Maybe it's something you can take up again. Have you looked into doing it again? What hobbies and interests do you have now? Let us know in the comments below, because I'd love to see what sort of things I'm into crafts with, I will do knitting and crocheting. I love doing scrapbooking. That's one thing I found. So I have this big case, which has a lot of scrapbooking supplies, and especially the albums, all blank, all brand new. And I thought it was lost because I thought the movers had moved it, and it never appeared in the stuff that was in my storage here in Arizona. And so when I was out in San Diego, I went out on the Thursday, and on Friday I had the Friday off work so I could go and clear my storage locker in San Diego. Took 2 carloads, but I got there. And I found my big bag of scrapbooking supplies. I was super, super excited about that. And the other one I had lost, I was bummed about losing as well. And I thought, well, maybe it's sitting in a box somewhere, but I found that in the storage locker too. So I was super excited to find 2 things that I thought was missing. Still haven't found my wedding dress though. My wedding dress that I wore when I got married to Brad, I still have no clue where that is. So do I have anything left to go through? I don't have anything left to go through from the storage locker. I still have some boxes from the movers that I have to go through. So maybe I'll find it in there. Maybe I won't. I don't know. But I don't know what else was in that box with that one. So who knows? Anyway, I've got a DOG that wants to go for a WARK in the HEAT. Actually, she really doesn't want to go out in the heat. It's just going to be one of those things that we just have to go and endure. So we'll drink a lot. And then we'll go for a walk in the heat. Yes, have some electrolytes before I go out. That always helps. So I'm going to go have some electrolytes. And, oh, did you know? And this is something that I learned from our friend Nicole, who will be here on Tuesday. I think she's coming on this Tuesday. She couldn't make it this past Tuesday. Is that you take a pinch of like sea salt or Himalayan salt and just put a pinch in your thingy of water, and it's creates natural electrolytes. So just a little pinch of Himalayan salt or sea salt and put it in your water, because it's got all the minerals in there. So that's your electrolyted water. So you don't have to go get those that are full of sugar and chemicals and all that sort of stuff. It's a natural electrolyte thing. Or drink some coconut water. That's the other one that's got natural electrolytes in it too. Anyway, I'm out of here. So go find your hobbies and your interests that you used to do as a kid and see if you're still interested in those things now. Or what hobbies, and let us know in the comments below what hobbies and interests you have. And we'll catch you guys tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific. I've got a little puppy here who wants to go for, you want to go for a walk? Ooh, the ears stood up with that word. Walk. Yeah. Okay. Have a super fantastic sparkling evening. Hey, Konara.